Respected personalities on the dais and off the dais, Assalamu alaikum. Feminine spirituality, Muslim woman as Abdullah and Khalifa. When we talk about spirituality, we are addressed with many questions like, is it a highly personified relationship between God and believer? Or is it mediated by unequal interpersonal relationship in the present social structure? How different forms of gender inequalities define the religious subjectivity of a woman? And what are the different levels of feminine spirituality to which a Muslim woman fulfills her religious responsibility to God? This paper is an attempt to address these questions and also to explore two central Islamic theological ideals, Abdullah and Khalifa, that means servant to God and moral agent, in relation to the very existence and lives of Muslim women, especially in context of Kerala. Feminine spirituality has emerged as an interesting field of study for last two decades to critically analyze the secular liberal feminism, patriarchal religion, masculine notions on spirituality, and the language of politics itself. Spirituality may indicate stoic attitudes, occult phenomena, the practice of so-called mind control, yoga discipline, escapist fantasies, interior journeys, and appreciation of Eastern religious wilderness sojourns, political resistance, contemplations, abstinences, hospitality, evocation of poverty, non-violence, silence, the effort of prayer, obedience, generosity, exhibiting stigmata, entering solitude, or I suppose among these and many other things. Spirituality was regarded as a legitimate, necessary complement to dogmatic or systematic theologies and taught as part of moral theology. Spirituality in this sense has to do with the human inner experience of God, of transcendent dimension. Feminist spirituality has established itself quite firmly among these many forms of spirituality as a field in its own right, together with others like Black, liberation, and African spirituality. Not only are political issues now being drawn into the field, but political questions about all aspects and fields of spirituality are being posed. As Peter G.R.D. Villiers identifies, one of the constant programs is, firstly, the deconstructing of patriarchal and other oppressive structures. It argues extensively that women's spirituality should not fall into the trap of the earlier phases of spirituality that was essentially male in character. Broadly speaking, one could argue that in its second constructive phase, feminine spirituality seeks to establish and work out a symbolic universe that would reflect the female experience in female forms and manner. But now, spirituality question in feminism also mark the way out to the limitation of our political language. In a recent interview, Bell Hooks said, I think spirituality poses a threat because deep spirituality not only allows for a transcendence of categories, but it also says that compassion requires of us. Like an act of practice of love and kindness, that the old paradigm of enemy and oppressor gets broken down and one has to again confront a more complex sense of things. In that sense, in this paper, I am trying to bring Islamic understanding of the spirituality to allow us mutuality as a practice to relationship by invoking the term Khalifa and Ab, rather socially constructed gender binaries. Khalifa is defined as the divinely given human responsibility to act as moral agents occurs in intersecting social, political and interpersonal spheres. Here I am trying to explain some of the social, political and interpersonal roles of Muslim women in which how they are acting upon God or believer relationship ensuring their khilafah. Muslim woman in family. Patriarchal interpretation of religious texts and the Hindu Brahmanical system influence familial order in India has been framed as subjugated religious responsibility to women. To be specific, it has been clearly established and confined that Muslim woman is the one who is entitled with homemaking, child upbringing and helping her partner to fulfill his religious responsibility. This familiar concept is a highly value-based one where male is the real and dominated power of the family and women are the one who meant to serve them. There are certain verses from the Quran and some tradition which are interpreted conveniently to reinforce this claim. Among them, the verse of Nushuz is the most manipulated one. Quran, being a polysemic text, is open to both egalitarian and patriarchal readings. But the dominance of later causes asymmetrical gender power relations being religiously inscribed in various social contexts. But in Islam, woman has the real power of the family. She is the Khalifa of the family. She is the one who control and run the family. Molding and upbringing children with Iman and Taqwa are one among her religious roles only, but she is never confined to it. In history, we have the instances of Sahabi woman Asma radiallahu anhu. She sent her son to the war front, and when he doubted if enemies would disfigure his body, the reply she given to her son was that did the God feel pain when it is peeled off after its death? This is one of the examples how a woman fulfills her moral responsibility to God, being a mother. The role of mother has been variously conceived and variously fulfilled. As E.S. Florenza observes, all religious systems develop norms for behavior and relationships, including family relationships with explicit and implicit ideas and prescriptions concerning sexuality and parenthood, mothers and children. The motherhood or pregnancy phase itself is a phase when a woman experiences the highest level of spirituality. It is the phase of partnership of women in the creative work of the God. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf explains, the Arabic and Hebrew word for womb, that means rahm, is derived from the word for mercy, rahma, and it is the expression of the creative power of God in human beings. This venerated notions of pregnancy period in Islam has its own relevance in such a context where liberal feminists call for liberation from wombs. I have heard experience from women who were explaining their elevated feelings of spirituality in this stage which cannot be explained in words. The labor pain experienced by a woman being part of God's creative work has been beautifully mentioned in Surah Luqman using the phrase wahnan ala wahn. It is not confining of woman's power to maternity only, but I am just trying to emphasize how a woman is powerful in terms of maternity. But as mentioned earlier, our family concepts often subjugate her to husband, where even her entrance to Jannah is exclusively bound upon his pleasure, irrespective of his religiosity. As Sadia Sheikh explains in Sexing Islamic Theology, Theorizing Woman Experience and Gender in South African context, there are Muslim women who believes that their religion encompasses particular ethical ideals that should guide sexual dynamics. They have not only come out of the stigma that goodness or badness of a woman is determined by sexual satisfaction of her husband, but also they strongly believing that spiritual sex with mutual satisfaction is a form of ibadat from their side too. They have even illustrated examples for divorces in which woman abandons their husband for his sexual reciprocity. Coming to Kerala context, we can see many instances for such an agency of woman working out in making decisions on marital relationships. It can be accounted to the religious consciousness of women who comprehend sexuality in connection to their spiritual affairs. They believe in tashawwur, that means negotiations, as the basic of ideal Islamic relationship where mutuality is the vital element. That is, there is no subjectivity or domination, but it is a negotiation that drives families, which in larger sense is understood as fulfillment of their khilafah. Muslim women in public spheres. Amina Wadud argues that the khilafah includes the responsibility to work towards social justice, human integrity and gender equality. In this way, she finds herself as khalifa in the way she engages with religious texts. Being a pious Muslim woman, addressing the questions on her identity and self itself is a part of her Muslim responsibility. Apart from rearing religious children and family, she can never be accused of deviating from her responsibility once she comes to forefront for justice. In the present context, where Muslim woman is used as sophisticated tool to attack Islam, her dress and other affairs become botheration to many. Patronizing Muslim women and advocating their liberation is one of the progressive acts among the pseudo-secular intellectuals. In such a situation, I think different forms of resistance can be read as Khilafah of a Muslim woman, keeping her religious self as such. There are works of Sabah Mahmud and Zainabul Ghazali, for instances, which clearly explains the political representation of parda-clad and practicing Muslim women and how they are interfering in public affairs, keeping their pious identity. They are even capable of resisting accusations against their Islamic dress code, imbibing it is part of their religious duty. In campuses where fascism has deepened its roots, Muslim girls realize their role as a moral agent of God and fight against it. We are frequently hearing different happenings from campuses across Kerala where Muslim identities are questioned. Recently, a Muslim woman is denied her medical graduation for wearing hijab. And also in the recent Madapalli campus issue, the girl named Selva is attacked by SFI goons. Both of them raised their voices for rights. I would like to understand this engagement as spiritual interventions where they identify it as their religious responsibility rather seeing them as a stress-induced responses. Intervention of Muslim women in political sphere is also not that new to us. Quran exemplifies Queen of Saba as the best ruler, and her ways has been explained as the best form of rule to be followed. Her negotiation with her fellow ministers and how she reacted to Prophet Sulaiman's letter has explained. If there is no khilafat or imarat for women, Quran would not have exemplified a woman for the rulers. She has the responsibility to question the deviance of politics from the virtues and humanity. We have another instance of Qawla. She questions Khalifa Umar and threatens him reminding Allah, and her consciousness is arrived from her spiritual self. When Umar tried to put a hand in the topic of Meher, a Muslim woman asked him that who gave the permission to interfere in the law and right given by Allah to women. It is the God consciousness and the religious responsibility makes her emotionally strong to question the Khalifa of Muslims. With this traditional background itself, I think we can evaluate the present-day interventions and standpoints of Muslim women. Social work and social services. Women are more engaged in the field of social work and services. Muslim women found it as their servitude to God. That's why we can see a large number of Muslim women volunteers in many NGOs like pain and palliatives, etc. It is not the feeling that only came from the feeling of humanity, but from the feeling of God consciousness and her duty towards God. It is the obligatory duty of every Muslim woman to give relief and homage to the one who doesn't have and to those who are in disadvantageous positions. The religious text has insisting on the Muslim to visit the sick and fulfill his needs. To Muslims, it is the duty towards Allah the Exalted, and also to give relief to the person who is faced with mental, physical and economic affairs. So the Muslim responsibility of women take another phase in the social service sphere. It is the service she gives to the society as a Khalifa. Entrepreneurship and financial independence. The best entrepreneur in the history is Khadija bint Khuwailid, the wife of Prophet. She had a big business group inside and outside Makkah. There are many studies showing entrepreneurship ability and working potential of Muslim women in Malaysia. The studies revealed that they are very empowered and selfless. The driving force behind them is the spiritual power they hold. It's not the God consciousness, it's the God consciousness in their life, and whatever they do has led them to this position. They are controlling a large business groups being practicing Muslims. Their father is not pulling them back from working. In Kerala too, we can see many Muslim women who does the same, keeping religious identities in words and action. And in Kerala, we can find many Muslim women, they are financially independent. And when the family needs are not fulfilled by the existing financial support, she understands it as a religious responsibility to financially empower the family. Thus, what I was trying to substantiate is we can't make division of spiritual roles among religious human beings, considering existing inequalities in the society, which in turn is a result of human perceptions. As both men and women, entitled with Abdullah and Khalifa, both have religious responsibility to be fulfilled in their own ways. I think it is the time to revisit different roles of Muslim woman through which she can fulfill her responsibility to God. And the most important khilafat of the Muslim woman is to know herself, not from within the feminist perspective, or patriarchal social norms. Thank you.